Last week here on the channel, I put up my preview of the NatureHike Spire tent. In that episode, I set it up, I attached the inner, I got inside, and I was blown away at how small this tent was. I was so shocked at the size of this tent, of the inner, that I forgot to do something, and it didn't dawn on me until I was driving home that I had forgotten this. I completely forgot to take a look at this tent without the inner inside of it. Because the thing is, maybe that is a usable shelter with the inner missing. But then again, maybe it's not. In this episode, we will answer that question. If you didn't see the preview for this tent here, I highly recommend that you go back and watch it. That way you can get all the information concerning the shelter. In this episode, I will touch upon the main points only, but the primary focus is setting this up with a trekking pole, but without the inner. To rehash what took place in the preview, I set up the tent, I attached the inner, I opened that up, I got into the inside, and I was blown away at how small it was. My feet were crammed against the wall, and my head was cockeyed, turned to the side. That was the only way that I could fit inside of that tent. I grabbed the tape measure, I measured it, and I estimated that if you were above 5 foot 3 inches, the tent would not work for you. Apparently there are people who are much taller than that, who use the tent, but with modifications. They pulled out the walls and stuff like that. For myself, as I mentioned before, I don't review products based upon what you can do to them. For an example, you can have a leaky tent, right? A tent that's not waterproof. You can put a tarp over it, but that doesn't really solve the issues with the product itself. I review products based upon their own merits, upon the design, and not what I could do to it to make it better. See? Even the crows don't like this tent. Alright folks, I'm going to set this up real quick. Let's see if the fly itself can make for a usable shelter. Okay. I'll tell you what, let's open up this door as well. Without the inner, with the doors open, you can see that yes, this is a very, very small tent. The biggest issue here is the pole. It's right in the center of this thing, and it basically takes up all of the space. It prevents you from doing basically anything. By just sitting in here, I'm either touching the pole or touching the wall. And this is the thing, I just set this tent up. With this being a silicone treated nylon, as soon as this gets wet, it gets damp, it rains, condensation forms on the inside, this is going to sag. This is going to stretch. So while this looks okay right now, as soon as this begins to sag, it's going to come in and it is going to be awful. That means you would have to use each of the guy lines to really pull this out, pull out these walls and pull it away from you. You have no choice. Otherwise, this would just simply sag in and it would be completely unusable. Let's do the guy lines, let's pull the walls out, and let's see what that's like. As you all can see, I'm back inside of the tent now. We've guided out. That has added some space. We're talking about 2 inches maybe. Not that big of a deal, to be honest. No matter what, this is a very small tent, and that needs to be kept in mind. Again, the biggest problem here is that you have this pole in the center. And the question is, can we move this maybe? Let's try. Maybe move it to the side. Moving the pole over to the side does add some more space, and realistically that's the only way that I could see actually using this. I'm kneeling inside of this, right? I could do that for a little while, but this isn't a position that I could keep for a long period of time. Let's say that you were stuck inside of this for a long period of time. You would have to have something to sit on, like a chair. So let's grab a chair, let's put it in here, and let's see if we can even use it. Okay. Is this usable? Yes, technically so. Is this going to be really comfortable? No, it's not. Again, folks, the taller you are, the more uncomfortable this is going to be. Something else to consider is the fact that this is raised up pretty high. So let's say that you were setting this up in an exposed area. Let's say that it was rainy, it was windy. There's nothing to stop that wind-blown moisture from getting underneath this tarp, this tent, whatever you want to call it. If we were to lower this down to the ground, I'm not sure if I could fit in this. Something else that you have to consider is the fact that already airflow inside of this is limited. You lower it down to the ground, there's no airflow, so it's just you right next to the materials. This tent is holding in heat. You do have 2 vents, but they're only going to do so much. So condensation is taking place, you're getting super hot, you're getting wet with your own sweat. In my opinion, this simply makes no sense. I mean, none at all. My next question here is, I mean, this looks really small to me. What about just laying down underneath this? Does that make sense? Let's grab a ground sheet and a tape measure and let's check. Folks, this is hard to do because of this pole. It's so small in here. It's just ridiculous. If I lay down at an angle, I can fit inside of this. But my feet are very close to the edge of this side, and my head is very close to the edge on this side. You know, everybody, again, because of the small size of this system here, if you're above 5'3", 5'4", this simply does not make any sense. This is just too small. You have to consider where the materials are, where your feet are going to be. I mean, you don't want to be coming into contact with this wet surface because it will get wet. Condensation will form on this. And the same goes for this side. You don't want your sleeping bag exposed to that moisture, getting soaking wet. All that's going to do is cause problems for you. I mean, so like 5'3", that's about the max that I would recommend for this. Just in case you didn't see the first episode, let's do a refresher as far as the stats go of this tent. This is a 1-person trekking pole tent. The fly is a 20 denier silicone treated nylon. The inner, which I will show you now, is a 38T nylon, that's the floor, with polyester mesh. No poles are included. You do receive a bunch of tent stakes, and the outside dimensions of this tarp system measures 82.6 inches by 82.6 inches, and it's 53.1 inches tall. The weight of the fly and the tent stakes is 1.6 pounds, but do remember that's not the weight of the pole. You have to factor that in as well. The easiest color to find of this tent is in green, but you can locate it in orange. The price of the full tent is $130. That's the retail price. But on AliExpress, you can purchase the fly by itself for 68 bucks. Or if you're interested in the orange version, it's $40. In this video, as far as stats go, that's all I'm going to share. If you want more information, check out the preview. Now let's focus on summing this up real quick. The setup process is super simple. There's nothing to it. The weight of the system without the inner is not bad, but you do have to supply your own trekking pole. So it's lightweight, but it's not ultralight. As far as space goes, there is none. It's ridiculous. It's uncomfortable. As far as airflow goes, there's very little, and it's going to be stifling in the warmer months. Can you sleep underneath this and be protected? That really depends on how tall you are. If you're above 5 feet 3 inches, I say no. Is this a tent or a tarp? In my opinion, in this setup, this is a tarp. Once you add the inner, then you have a tent. Should you even consider purchasing this tent or just the fly itself? I say no. Even after putting up the preview, I had plans to continue testing out this product and to ultimately put up a review. After taking out the inner, getting inside of this, I'm not going to do that. Even though I don't plan to test this out and use it and review it like I do typically here on the channel, I will be supplying more information about this in the future, namely with waterproof testing. We will find out whether or not this is a waterproof product. If I was going to put money on it, yes or no, I would say this is going to be waterproof. NatureHike in general does a really good job when it comes to their shelters. They are waterproof. Their quality's not always the best, but you have to keep in mind the company's using really good materials, and again, they tend to be waterproof. You may have some loose threads here and there, but this costs $130 for the full setup. It doesn't cost $600 like many other companies would charge, so that does need to be kept in mind. For this episode of the Outdoor Gear Review, I am done. Make sure to comment down below, share your thoughts. What do you all think about this tent? Again, everybody, I was driving home and I was just thinking, you know what? I am not done yet. I need to set this tent up without the inner, and we need to see if this is even usable. And the answer is no. No, it's not. I hope you have a fantastic day. Everyone take care, be well, strength and honor. By the way, my rain testing of this tent will be coming up soon. Let's see how well it performs.